You know, I still remember it to this day. It was February 2017, and PSG was about to play the first leg of the Champions League game against Barcelona. This was the third time that PSG faced Barcelona in the knockout rounds. Having lost the previous 2 rounds, PSG was to make sure that history wouldn't repeat again. That being said, that Barcelona team was no joke. A front line of Messi, Neymar, and Suarez, supplied by Iniesta, was terrifying to face at any day. That being said, PSG had a good start. Well, more than a good start, winning 4-0 at home against Barcelona. That's quite a scoreline, my friend. A lot of people, including me, thought that this is gonna be it. This is gonna be the moment when PSG makes a great leap forward in their quest to win the Champions League. You'd be forgiven to think that PSG was already through. Barcelona was, well, how do I put it? Quite paralyzed in that first leg, but severely intended. The return game at Camp Nou was just a formality. PSG was gonna prove to the whole world that... oh wait, they just conceded the goal at the 3rd minute. Well, not quite the beginning they were hoping for, but it was still 4-1 in the aggregate. That being said, Barcelona scored a 2nd and a 3rd goal as well, and suddenly there was some hope in Camp Nou. All of a sudden, PSG looked vulnerable. You could sense the fear on the PSG players. But it was in these tough times that one man rose above the rest. A man with a jawline made of steel. Edinson Cavani scored the goal to make it 3-1 at Camp Nou, and you could see the relief on PSG players. With less than half an hour to go, Barcelona needed to score 3 goals to go through. And if you're watching this in 2037, this was a time when away goals were still a thing. That being said, Neymar pulled one back with a sublime free kick on the 88th minute and scored a penalty in the 1st minute of extra time. Although it was hardly a penalty, as Suarez mistook the penalty area for a swimming pool. Paris Saint-Germain didn't really mind though, as they were still ahead on away goals. But fate had other plans. A Neymar pass to the penalty area, and an overstretched Sergi Roberto made the scoreline 6-1. And the comeback was complete. I've been watching football since the late 90s, but never have I seen a collapse of this magnitude. And trust me, I'm a Milan fan who's been through Istanbul when Liverpool won that Champions League final in 2005. By the way, I don't have a data on this, but I'm guessing there were many babies named after Sergi Roberto 9 months after that comeback. I'm actually not kidding. I'm genuinely curious if there's a data on how many babies were born 9 months after that comeback. Let me know in the comment section below. In my opinion, that 6-1 comeback perfectly represents the PSG project, trying to put themselves in the position to go through and win the Champions League just to be pulled back one way or another. With more than 1.4 billion euros spent just in transfers alone since the takeover, PSG dominated the domestic competitions, winning 7 of the last 10 league titles as well as a host of domestic cups that I'm honestly not gonna count. But the aim of the PSG project, at least in footballing terms, was to win the Champions League, something that was boldly stated by the ownership right after the takeover was finalized. But the question is, why did PSG fail at winning a Champions League despite all that expense? And why we should consider PSG a football's monumental failure? Well, to do that, we gotta go back, way back to 2011, when Qatar Sports Investments took over PSG. The year is 2011, and Barcelona were the champions of Europe after beating Manchester United at the Wembley Stadium. And PSG? Well, they were a club that had seen better days in the past. Certainly not the club that they are today. Matter of fact, let me tell you something. They nearly avoided relegation in 2007 and 2008, surviving the latter campaign in a dramatic last day of the season against Sochaux. Yep, very different than the PSG that we know today. We didn't know it yet, but PSG was about to disturb the order of football the same way that Chelsea did in 2003. When QSI took over PSG in 2011, they immediately transformed the club from just a mediocre club into a financial behemoth of football. Initially, they were signing players with a view to become the strongest in France. In summer 2011, that meant signing Javier Pastore as a marquee signing, a player who was wanted by many of Europe's elite clubs, along with Blaise Matuidi and Jeremy Menez, as they spent just a tiny bit below 100 million euros. By the way, that was a lot of money back in the day. No longer was PSG just a mediocre club with cool jerseys. They spent a lot of money and they meant business. But they were not done there, because in December 2011, literally mid-season, PSG brought in Carlo Ancelotti while they were still first in the league, and somehow still finishing second in the league behind Montpellier after spending all that money. Mighty Montpellier, led by Olivier Giroud, beat Paris Saint-Germain with all that spending. That being said, PSG wasn't gonna let this slide, and it was the next summer that they really brought in the big guns. Now, during these times, some of you may remember that my beloved AC Milan was having severe financial problems. And what do other clubs do in these situations? Well, nicely donating cash by raiding their best players. Thiago Silva and Zlatan Ibrahimovic joined PSG in a combined deal of more than 60 million euros. But not just that, Lucas Moura joined PSG for 40 million euros in January as well, bringing up that season's transfer spendings to 101 million euros. That was a massive leap forward by Paris Saint-Germain. Not only they became a destination for megastars, but they were also back in the Champions League for the first time since 2005. And they had a good start. They topped their group with 5 wins and a loss, and would go to quarterfinals where they would lose to Barcelona. This wouldn't be the last time they would face Barcelona. All in all, that wasn't bad. It was a respectable season from Paris Saint-Germain. With the first league title in almost 2 decades and quarterfinals in the Champions League, only good times were ahead for PSG. Under the leadership of Carlo Ancelotti and the arrival of Edinson Cavani, they were gonna show the whole world what they were made of. And... yeah. This happened. Ancelotti's departure didn't prevent PSG to splash the money again, and this time it was Edinson Cavani, a striker that I've personally watched in Serie A with Napoli and hold in very high regards. Just like the previous season, they finished on top of their group and beat Leverkusen to meet Chelsea in quarterfinals. They won the game 3-1 in the first leg. All they had to do was protect their lead against Jose Mourinho and his players. This was gonna be the time when they would go through to the semifinals. And yeah. They bottled it. Chelsea scored with 3 minutes remaining to make it 2-0 and penalized PSG for not putting the game to bed with their chances. The next season, PSG was fined by UEFA for breaching financial fair play rules for overvaluing their sponsor contracts. Well, I guess for once, UEFA penalized the club for FFP that's not named Milan. They had to pay 60 million euros and have a reduced squad of 21 players for their Champions League campaign. Since they were under UEFA's probation to meet the financial fair play, this transfer window wasn't as eventful, so they had to be content with paying just £50 million for David Luiz, making him the most expensive defender at the time. You know, just one of those PSG things. In 2014-15 season, they were paired with a familiar face in their Champions League group, one that they have faced before, and one that they will face later on as well. They finished second in their group behind Barcelona and went on to meet Mourinho's Chelsea for the second season in a row. This time, PSG were out for blood. After tying 1-1 at home, they went on to win 2-2 in extra time. I gotta say, this was one of the first times in their recent history when they didn't really bottle it. They held their nerves with 10 men in a game that had Zlatan sent off in the first half. They now had the confidence of beating one of Europe's elite clubs and patiently waited for their next opposition, who turned out to be... Come on, are you kidding me?
Oh shit, here we go again.
PSG wanted to make a statement by passing through Barcelona and reach the long-awaited semi-finals that they were longing for. But Messi, Neymar and Suarez had different plans, and PSG would crash out with a 5-1 loss on aggregate. Oh, by the way, in case it matters, they won everything domestically. Like, literally every single trophy. For the 2015-16 season, they signed quite a few players, but the most significant of them was Angel Di Maria from Manchester United for 63 million euros. That was a lot of money back then, but Angel Di Maria was a world-class player who just came out of a bad year at United. They would finish second in a group that had Real Madrid in it, and patiently waited for... Hey dude, miss me? You son of a... That being said, there was something different about this Chelsea team. You see, while they won the Premier League in the previous season under Jose Mourinho with 8 points difference, this Chelsea team was, how do I put this, closer to relegation zone than to the top of the table. Believe it or not, they were actually 16th in December. That's horrible, my friend. After sacking Jose Mourinho, Chelsea were hoping to bounce back in the Champions League, but Paris Saint-Germain was having none of it and beat a lifeless Chelsea 4-2 on the aggregate to face Manchester City in the next round. In a derby of bottomless cash of oil money, PSG tied Manchester City 2-2 at home while they couldn't find the net in the second leg, and Manchester City beat them 1-0 to go through to the semi-finals. And oh, by the way, they won every domestic trophy again. Like, everything. You know, in case that matters. This was also the last season for Zlatan Ibrahimovic with the Parisians, as he would join Jose Mourinho at Manchester United. David Luiz would also go back to Chelsea just one season after his record-breaking move to PSG. The 2016-17 season would be interesting, as for the first time in a while, they would actually finish second place in the league as they fall short to a brilliant Monaco team who had Bernardo Silva, Fabinho, and a young Kylian Mbappe as well. But not just that, Monaco would also go all the way to the semi-finals. The same semi-finals that PSG have been longing for some time. So far, despite all the investments and domestic glory, European success was hard to come by. And to get there, PSG hired a coach who's done it before, multiple times. Enter the king of Europa League, Unai Emery. They would finish second in their group behind Arsenal and eagerly waited for their next opponent for the... oh hey, it's Barcelona again. But this time, things were different. You see, this time, PSG beat Barcelona 4-0 at home. That was huge for the Parisians. A statement victory against a team they couldn't get through in the past. A return leg at Camp Nou just seemed like a formality. But then... yeah. That happened. That's the game I was talking about at the start of this video. I guess it wasn't a good evening for the Parisians.
Good evening.
A 4-0 lead turned into 6-5 on aggregate. That's quite a collapse, my friend. How could you let that happen? Imagine suffering that kind of a comeback and losing the league title to Monaco, a league title that you often took for granted. That was a huge scar on PSG, and they were not gonna let this slide.
That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that, and it became personal with me.
And what does a rich man do if he wants to get over a heartbreak? That's right, buy a Ferrari. And that's what PSG did. Not just one, but two Ferraris. First, they bought Neymar in a deal that even surprised his Barcelona teammates. Barcelona was not expecting anyone to meet Neymar's release clause of 222 million euros. But then, you never know with PSG, do you? But they didn't just stop there. They also signed Kylian Mbappe, who was the star of that Monaco team that won the league and went to the Champions League semi-finals. The two megastars that they lost the league title to and lost the Champions League to. I guess, if you can't beat them, just buy them? With a front line of Neymar, Mbappe and Cavani, PSG was not messing around. They finished on top of their group ahead of Bayern Munich and scored 25 goals. 25 goals, while conceding just 4. Indeed, Paris Saint-Germain meant business here. And hey, they finished first. So maybe, just maybe, they wouldn't have to face the likes of Chelsea or Barcelona again. They were gonna face a team that finished second in their... Oh, are you kidding me? And hey, odds are not in your favor when you face the Real Madrid of Cristiano Ronaldo in the Champions League, and they would go out with a 5-2 loss on aggregate in the second round. They also won everything domestically, because with that squad, how can you not? The next season will be interesting, but before we talk about the next season, don't forget to leave a like or comment. It really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm, as a lot of time goes into making these videos. I really enjoy reading your comments. Thank you for your love and support. In 2018-19, they finished first in a group that had Liverpool and Napoli in it. Honestly, that was quite impressive. They would face Manchester United in the second round and win 2-0 in the Old Trafford. This was a massive lead that PSG took to the return leg, but fate had a different plan and smiled on Manchester United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, and United would go through a late penalty that was converted by Marcus Rashford. Legend has it that Ole was seen on the wheel after that, and as usual, PSG bottled it. Again, this was also one of the first times that I noticed Neymar missing the games around that time of the year through, in a quote, injuries. Overall, Project Neymar has failed without his messiah on the pitch, but in the next season, things are gonna get interesting. Very interesting. You see, after finishing first in a group that had Real Madrid in it, they would go on to beat Dortmund and were on a decent momentum. But then, the whole world stopped. There was a new enemy in the block. Our lives as we knew it had to change for a while, and football had the least importance compared to that. I'm talking about the C word here. Not sure if I can say it here in the video. Eventually, football returned, and the Champions League was resumed in a neutral country, where they would play against each other in single one-off games. After 2 years of absence from quarterfinals, PSG were back against Atalanta. And against the might of Atalanta, the superstars of PSG had to thank Eric Choupo-Moting to finally go through to the semifinals. Imagine a whole decade of investments and Eric Choupo-Moting saves you. The guy that was released by Stoke. With newfound confidence, they beat RB Leipzig 3-0 in the semi-finals and would go on to meet Bayern in the final. This was supposed to be it, the ultimate prize in sight. All they had to do was to beat Bayern Munich in a one-off final match, and they didn't do too bad. But after missing a couple of golden chances, PSG was punished by Bayern and lost that final 1-0. And you know what's the irony of it? The goal scorer was Kingsley Coman, the player that PSG let go for free just to accommodate all the other superstars. And that was it. The biggest chance to win that elusive Champions League was blown away. Not even Eric Choupo-Moting could save it. And I guess it had a huge mental blow to the Parisians, because guess what? In the next season, they would actually lose the league title to Lille, a team that no one fancied to even challenge PSG. And you know what made it even more painful? The fact that Lille won this by having Mike Mignon, Boubakary Soumare, Jonathan Ikone, and Timothy Weah, players that were all let go by PSG in the past. PSG is in a weird spot, where winning domestic trophies doesn't really get you any credits, but failure to win them will be used against you. And that's not a good place to be when it comes to expectations. Things were different in Champions League though. Finishing first in a group that had Manchester United and RB Leipzig, they would face Barcelona again. That being said, this wasn't the Barcelona of the past. This was a Barcelona that was plagued by mismanagement and financial issues, and PSG would win 5-2 on the aggregate and would beat Bayern Munich 3-3 on away goals to go through semi-finals against Manchester City. Now, the last time these two faced each other, they were trying to build their legacy under their new ownership, but this time they were both established powerhouses, and Man City would win 4-1 on the aggregate to go to the final. Now, this is where things get interesting. PSG would go on a mad extravaganza of signings with Wijnaldum, Sergio Ramos, Gigio Donnarumma, and the one and only Lionel Messi, all on free transfers. They also bought Achraf Hakimi from Inter, who's honestly one of the best right backs in the business. I gotta say, with those players, they literally signed the Champions League right there, both in experience and quality. I mean, imagine a front three whose worst player cost you more than 200 millions. That's mad. That being said, just as we've seen with Real Madrid's first Galacticos era, it's not easy to fit in a bunch of individuals and expect them to gel together. And speaking of Real Madrid, that's who they would face in the knockout rounds. After what was quite frankly, very uninspiring performances both in the league and in Europe. And there's a massive backstory to that game. You see, in the summer, Real Madrid was seriously after Kylian Mbappe, and with just 1 year left on his contract, PSG rejected all offers from Real Madrid. So when the two teams faced each other in the Kylian Mbappe derby, all the eyes were on Mbappe, and he did not disappoint. He scored a last-minute goal in a 1-0 win against Real Madrid, leaving it all to play for at the Bernabeu. And hey, Mbappe would score again in the return leg as well. But just like in the past, in a true PSG fashion, they would collapse to a 3-1 defeat and would crash out of the Champions League. The bubble burst yet again in the most calamitous fashion for PSG. Yet, no one was surprised. At the end of the day, how many times have we seen this over and over and over and over again? With the curtain drawn on yet another Champions League campaign, it honestly leaves plenty more unresolved questions. As I was writing the script for this video, PSG sacked Leonardo as a sporting director and replaced him with Luis Campos, who was the architect of that 2017 Monaco team that beat PSG for the title and later on went to Lille, who also beat PSG for the 2021 league title. Honestly, for once, I feel like PSG made a decision that actually made sense. There's also a rumor that it was advised by Kylian Mbappe, which perfectly leads to the next segue. Until recently, Mbappe looked certain to leave for Real Madrid just to make a U-turn to stay at PSG until 2025. His admiration and desire to someday play for Real Madrid is not exactly a hidden secret, and given PSG's repeated failures in the Champions League, who knows? Mbappe's future could lay elsewhere. And honestly, I don't know how true are the details of his new contract, or the fact that he's been given a say in the sporting project of PSG. But what worries me about PSG is that I honestly wouldn't be surprised if all of this was true. We normally say that a player is not bigger than a club, but I think in this case, that seems to be where it's headed. And it's not even a long-term contract. He can literally play the same games in a couple of years as well. If Mbappe left for free, that would have been a massive blow for the reputation of the PSG project, with Neymar getting statistically worse and worse each season and Messi not getting any younger at 34. And as for Messi, hasn't exactly been the walk in the park in the French League as many of us had expected. I guess only time will tell, but the latest defeat leaves PSG to lick their wounds yet again and enjoy what looks like yet another routine league title. And who knows, perhaps next year we may have the same exact conversation about another PSG defeat in the Champions League. Until then, it'll be interesting how PSG tackles the current issues that they're facing. But one thing's for sure, we still haven't seen the last act of this Paris Saint-Germain project.